What's the worst thing you've ever been accused of while being completely innocent? Posted this before, but seems relevant. I was fighting with my brother, realized the fight was dumb, so I just went to my room. My brother decided to punch himself and blame me. My mom is yelling at me and grounding me. I can't believe you did that to your brother, blah, blah, blah. So I figured if I was about to get in trouble for it, I should actually do it. I turned around and actually clocked my brother in the face, to which he responded, "I can't believe she actually did that." And my mom realized he had been lying. I ended up not getting in trouble. That's some bold logic to just be like, hey, I'm getting in trouble for it, so I might as well. And the fact that it worked out, props to her. Story 2. Drugs. Shockingly enough, my parents' divorce made me act out at 9 years old, and I kept distracting other kids in class. My mom was convinced it was because I was doing drugs and yanked hair out of my head and made me get blood tested. They found nothing because I was 9 years old. Story 3. I was accused of destroying a window at school by dropping a rock from a higher floor. Interrogated by the principal, parents were called, friends had to fund the repairs, bullied on the bus, it effing sucked. Found out who it was 2 years later, but by then, nobody cared. Story 4. I helped a friend of my mother move when I had just turned 18 for no pay, and this lady accused me of stealing one of her guns. I booked it straight to the police department to explain the situation. When she tried to report me, they told her she was crazy. They already spoke to me and that criminals that steal guns don't go directly to the police. Story 6. Our neighbor had severe dementia. My husband is very tall. His head is over the top of the fence no matter what. She filed a report that he was peeping on her. Her caretakers came to his defense, and when the cops saw him standing by the fence, they realized. But it could have gone badly. Husband steered clear of that half of the yard until she moved into assisted living. Story 7. This is tame compared to others in this thread, but it's one that has stuck with me for ages. When I was really little, around 6, my aunt was babysitting me. My sweet dog was shedding fur. My aunt accused me of cutting her fur. She had me across her knee, saying she would spank me if I admitted it. I was sobbing uncontrollably because I loved my dog. We were the same age, and she was like a second mom to me, and I would never do that to her. My mom came home not long after, and I do remember her being livid. Despite my issues with my mom, she never once laid a hand on me. My mom couldn't believe that her sister never comprehended that animals shed fur in clumps. Story 8. My older sister accused me after I left her place of shaving her cat after she noticed some bald spots on him. After denying it, because who on earth would shave someone's cat, she then assumed I'd put lotion on him and he was having a reaction from it, thus resulting in hair loss. Again, I did not do. Turns out he has severe separation anxiety and would lick bald spots and sores to the point of bleeding on himself when he was alone. He now has one of these pheromone things that you stick into the wall that's supposed to calm him down and feel not so alone, and I'm guessing he's doing better with it. She never apologized for accusing me, and I'm still upset she would think I would do something like that. Story 9. When I was 16, I was riding with a friend back to another friend's house, and the cops pulled him over. I had nothing on me. He, unbeknownst to me, threw a bag of drugs underneath my chair. Cops found it, put us both in jail, took him to county, 17 years old, took me to juvie, 16 years old. He got out before me and hired a lawyer, pinned it on me through family connections. Got the charges reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor because I was a good kid and it showed. But it ruined my life for a good 5 years. Just heard that the kid all grown up broke into his ex-girlfriend's house to steal drugs and is pretty much a burnout loser. I'm applying for law school next spring. I mean, he didn't know his friend was going to do him like that, but just another good reminder to choose your friends wisely, guys. Story 10. Drugs. When I was in high school, I had a very monotonous voice that my parents thought was fake, and anytime we were out, they would ask someone to tell me what I sound like because they thought that if I was embarrassed enough, I would talk normally. Instead, it made me talk less and me shut out some of my friends in my life. When they realized I wasn't talking, they jumped to conclusions and accused me of doing drugs. What really made them think I was doing drugs was when I lost 20 bucks at my school's picnic. They were constantly counting my money to see if they can prove I was doing something and realized that I was missing $40 and told me to tell them what happened to it. I explained to them that I had a picnic at school and brought 40 bucks with me but lost half of it. They said my story didn't add up, so they started to rummage through my backpack and room anytime I wasn't home and would ask for the names of my friends and anyone that I was talking to so that they could run background checks on them. Story 11. Had just moved to a new school in 5th grade. Was never great at making new friends, so I thought I'd sugar them up by bringing sugar mixed with Kool-Aid, something that was popular at my old school. Who doesn't love a bunch of 10-year-olds licking their fingers and dipping them in a baggie of sugar? Apparently, just prior to me arriving, an older kid had given several first graders some drugs during this time and it got pegged on me. I was removed from class. Police came. I cried like a female dog because I didn't understand why they thought my grape Kool-Aid was drugs. I kept telling them to taste it. The principal finally did and realized I was telling the truth. Awesome! First week of school. Story 12. I was 14 and had just started to learn how to use a digital camera. The only one I had at the time was my mom's. Sometime after my birthday, the SD card that was my mom's went missing. My dad immediately went to blame me for it, and my mom was hoping I didn't do it. Over an hour or so of interrogating me, we still couldn't find it. Come to find out, my mom had put it in her normal place of valuables she keeps it in. I didn't even get an effing apology. Story 13. I was using my little sister's DS to transfer Pokemon. She had Mario Kart in it, and I had put it back in the case after I was done. The case had a flap that covered the games to protect them. She can't find it the next day, so everyone jumps on my butt and blames me for losing it. After searching, I said, "Wait a minute," and got her case. And sure enough, the game is right there. Saying I lost the game and then telling me I have to replace it for over an hour and it was right where I effing put it, no apology or anything, it still infuriates me. Story 14. In 3rd grade, I walked to a convenience store with $2 and spent 20 minutes trying to decide what candy to get, picking things up and putting them back, etc. The old lady clerk accused me of stealing and said to never come back. That was a bit problematic given it was the only gas station in my small town, and I've moved back and been living here for the last 15 years. Indecisiveness in the candy aisle. It always gets pegged for suspicion. Of course, to their credit, I was putting the candy in my pockets so that I could decide later. Not a good look. Story 15. We lived in a townhome condo complex. My mom was fighting with the board over misused funds. When she was at work, there was a knock at our door. One of the neighbors had an emergency and asked if I could come and watch her kids while she went to the hospital. Sure, I was 16 and had been babysitting for 4 years. I spent a few hours looking after 2 cute kids, 3 and 5. I got home before my mom. We started dinner and there was a knock at the door. It was a pair of policemen. The mother had gone to the police station and accused me of abusing her 3-year-old. She said that I hit her and locked her in the dryer for several hours. My mom asked the cop if he was insane. She pointed out that I was the kid who picked caterpillars off the walk and put them on the grass so people didn't step on them. She asked the cops to point out the complaint. When he pointed, my mom asked me if I was crazy because that's the woman who stole funds from the condo board. Why would I go there? I said I didn't know that and that she just said she had to go to the hospital immediately because her dad had had a heart attack. The cops said they would be back. They came back about an hour later and said I would not need to come with them after all. Turns out, Dad was alive and well. I wasn't so well after having a full-blown panic attack for an hour, though. Story 16. My sister's friend who lived with my family for a while when we were like 15 to 18 accused me of SA. She told my dad, my stepmom, my sister, all her friends, and my friends at our school that I SA'd her. I had to find out because people were coming up to me in the halls ready to throw hands. I found her during lunch and confronted her in front of all her friends and asked why people thought I SA'd her. She ended up admitting that she made it up because she had a huge crush on me. She also later accused my older brother, my best friend, her ex-boyfriend, and another guy. She is a very, very toxic person. Story 17. When I was 11, I was accused by a babysitter that I was SAing my sister when I was really playing my Nintendo DS with her. It was completely unbelievable because she said that she made it all up because she didn't want to change diapers. She got fired by my mom, and the last I saw her, she was living in her car. Story 18. I was 9 and a Girl Scout. I was attending a Girl Scout camp and the leader accused me of throwing trash around the campsite. She made me sit in a chair in the corner of a building. I remember crying over the whole situation. For the record, I didn't throw trash around the campsite. The leader was a mean woman. Story 19. I know this is ridiculous, but in 2nd grade, another child accused me of calling my teacher a female dog. No one believed me when I claimed innocence, and I got a spanking and was forced to apologize. I felt so powerless because since all the adults believed I was guilty, in effect, I was. I think I'm still a little mad about it. Hey, you got a right to be mad. I mean, granted, these things, they're not like high stakes, but the fact that people just point fingers at you and you're in trouble and for years no apology or nothing, that sucks. It really makes you think about the horror stories of people like serving decades in prison for something they didn't do. Story 20. Wife and I were asleep in bed, and when we woke up, she rolled over to get out of bed. She hit her eye on the corner of her nightstand and it left a sick, nasty, bruised/cut black eye for about a week. I had friends asking me if I hit her, and one friend gave me the business saying it's not cool to hit your wife. That friend actually beats his wife. Update. Well, this blew up overnight. Let me clarify some things I should have in the original post. I found out about the ex-friend's abusive behavior towards his wife long after he and I stopped talking to each other. We still have some mutual friends in common, and that's how I found out. Yes, we've contacted the police multiple times, but alas, the evidence just isn't enough for an arrest or conviction or what have you. The straw that broke the camel's back was he and I got into a physical altercation one time. Yes, there was alcohol involved, but I still had my wits about me. He, out of the blue, decked me in the face at a get-together, and I got him on the ground and broke that same arm he used to hit me with an armbar. Was doing jujitsu at the time. I regret it, and I'm sure he does too. After that, zero contact. Story 21. Not me, but my brother. He and his girlfriend were running to get a movie theater in downtown Seattle during a rainy afternoon. Some stupid Marvel movie or another. Anyhow, it was a late afternoon, sidewalks were busy and wet, and when she turned a corner, she slipped and did a faceplant. Bam! My brother was just ahead of her and didn't see her fall, just heard her yelling. He stopped, ran back, and was helping her up when a commuter comes up and starts asking if she's okay. Did your boyfriend do this? Can you speak openly? Blink 3 times if he's threatening you. My brother is standing there, in the rain, trying to help her up as a crowd gathers and his girlfriend is bleeding from the forehead. He nearly gets into a fight with the guy, yelling all these accusations, and worst of all, they did not get to see Spider-Man 3 until the next effing day. He still tells that story with the same level of upset. That really sucks. You know, on one hand, it's great that people are so concerned and actually want to take action to protect each other. But at a certain point, if the girl is right there genuinely telling everybody that she just tripped and everything's okay, let's, dial back the situation. She just wanted to see Spider-Man 3. Story 22. My favorite teacher in high school was in his mid-20s and was absolutely paranoid over catching an accusation like this. I guess his brother, also a teacher, got accused of it and it ruined his career. He would make sure he didn't spend 1 second alone with any students, always had another teacher in the room if he was talking to a lone student about something, never said a word outside the scope of professionalism, started every year off with the same speech, "Do not come up and hug me, we aren't friends, I'm here to teach you, you're here to learn," and did everything the right way. Then he caught a sophomore student getting high between buildings at lunch, and the little coward ran off and told her mom he showed her his chicken. Game over for him. Even though 3 other students were nearby and witnessed the whole thing, it was a small school and they weren't going to take any chances. Story 23. My father was accused of unaliving the neighbor's dog and disposing it at a nearby beach. When I was a kid, we had a rocky relationship with one of the neighbors because they had a yabby dog that they took very poor care of. It drove the whole street mad, but for some reason, it never got taken away by animal control. A few years ago, my parents moved to another part of town. Afterwards, Dad worked on the old house to get it ready to sell. One day, he was on the driveway when the neighbors left in their car. They made eye contact. Then, when the neighbors returned, their dog was inexplicably gone. They instantly accused Dad of sneaking over and butchering the dog because he had enough of it. He tried to explain that an animal control van had briefly come through the street shortly after they left, but they weren't having a bar of it. They were so convinced he had done something, they started a massive social media campaign to pressure him into admitting it, including invading all the local community groups and outing him. They even went so far as to drive an hour out of town to the beach we often go to on the weekends to put up posters. It was wild, it was stressful, and it was stupid. It only stopped after we picked up a lawyer and sent a cease and desist letter threatening to take them to court for public defamation. The dog was never found, and apparently they have 2 new ones now. This was also the same family that found someone's lost cat and decided to keep it. Story 24. In 4th grade, someone kept stealing mouse balls from the computer lab. I remember our teacher warning us about it. One day, my teacher pulled me aside and told me that someone had accused me of being the mouse ball thief. It was a guy I was friendly with, but not friends with. Kind of an outcast. I assured him this was totally false, and I think he believed me. I was a mostly good kid. The next day at school, I look inside my pencil box, and what do I find but a mouse ball sitting inside? I'm freaking out. I go up to the teacher, probably talking a million miles an hour about how I didn't steal the mouse ball, didn't know why it was in my pencil box, etc. He looks at me doubtfully and says he'll have to go get with the principal and figure out what to do with me. The whole evening, I'm still freaking out. My mom has the idea of looking my accuser up in the phone book. I looked that jerk up and confronted him and his father about what was happening. He denied doing anything on the phone. The next day, the kid admitted to the teacher first thing he had planted the ball as a practical joke. Saw the guy a few years later and he was trying to be friendly. I found myself still very upset by this incident. Story 25. Causing severe enough trouble on the bus that it warranted a mid-class trip to see the vice principal. A girl showed up at my study block junior year of high school asking for someone with a name similar to mine, but not my actual name. The teacher then looked at me and decided, close enough, and sent me off. Even in hindsight, I'd say I was a good kid. I never did anything that would get me in trouble. That walk was the longest walk I've ever had in my life, and by the time I got to the office, I was in tears. He sat me down, patiently got me to stammer my name out and what bus I rode, then told me I was definitely not the right person. My teacher looked downright crushed when I came back to class. The vice principal and I were best friends after that, though. Story 26. My first week of high school, I got called into the office because rumors were flying around that I was planning to blow up the school and had already rigged it with explosives. This was obviously news to me. Then, about a year later, I had my wisdom teeth removed and missed a week of school. When I finally came back, my friends had to explain the freaked out looks I kept getting from classmates. Apparently, a boy who regularly picked at me had vanished from school about the same time I did, and the rumor going around was that I had unalived him, eaten him, and then been arrested. Everybody was surprised to see me because they'd spent the past week telling each other about how I was in jail and he was in my stomach. Folks sure make up the weirdest rumors. The boy was fine, FYI, he just got suspended. Edit. Just woke up and since this got some traction, I guess I owe everybody some explanations. In fairness to the other kids, I was that weirdo from an abusive home who cracked strange jokes to cope with life. And resting female dog face? Well, I had resting enraged face. I assume a side effect of being a parental punching bag. And in extra fairness to the other kids, I could usually track the rumors back to something stupid I'd said. The explosives misunderstanding had to do with old middle school jokes about the gas nozzles in the science labs, mixed with an overhead conversation on the bus that morning where I was arranging to sell extra firecrackers to a guy who only lived a few dirt lanes from where I lived. And of course, I never brought any of that to school. To explain the really crazy rumor, I have to tell a bonus story. Not long after that first week of high school, my home life went entirely bonkers, and I had to move to another state. I was there for almost a year before circumstances changed again, and I had to come back. But I felt it was okay, as I'd already been to that high school previously, knew where everything was, and even had friends. So my first day back, I got my lunch tray, found a table of my friends, and went over to sit with them. But like I say, weird home life, weird sense of humor. So when everyone at the table looked up, surprised I was back, I said, "What? I swear I didn't kill anybody last night." They all freaked. Eventually, my best friend calmed everyone down enough to stop screaming, and she explained to my entirely baffled and confused face that the night before, an elderly couple had been unalived in their home. Small town, very little crime. My family didn't watch morning news, so I had no idea. I swear I was just cracking one of my unusual jokes. It just hit with crazy timing. I promise I'm better now. Turns out a lot of years away from an abusive childhood and learning about trust can heal a lot of damage. Oh, I relate to this one way too hard. I have often been the victim of very awful coincidental timing. When I was younger especially, I just said the strangest and most heinous things and people would be like, "Yeah, that just happened an hour ago." And you're just like, I was just joking, I swear, I didn't do anything. Troubling times. Moving on. Story 27. It wasn't the worst, but it definitely hurt. My sister once accused me of stealing her laptop that she had gotten for her birthday. My dad got all upset and said that I probably stole it so I could sell it for some dumb crap. He kept telling me to give it back, and I kept saying I didn't have it. Well, a while later, the little female dog comes out of her room holding the laptop. It turns out that it was under her bed the whole time. Story 28. Anabolic steroids. I was a high jumper on my college's track and field team, and we would have to do urine tests every so often. Well, one of mine came back from the lab positive for anabolic steroids, which give women who take them strong, manly-like features. I was 5'8" and 125 pounds. Luckily, the lab broke the test into 2 samples and eventually tested the second sample, showing it was clean. Apparently, the lab had a contaminated batch of test tubes, and the company had to fly reps into my college to apologize to me and a baseball player this both happened to. It was a scary couple weeks. Story 29. I got kicked out of a sit-down restaurant during my company Christmas party for doing drugs in the bathroom. When the manager told me to leave and that they don't allow that behavior here, my boss and 20-plus other employees vouched for me that I had not left the table for 2+ hours, the entire duration of the party. The manager called my boss an idiot and made me leave. No one in my company has been back since. Story 30. There was a creative writing class at my high school for seniors. You have to write a creative piece to apply to the class. I wrote a piece and got into the class. The class was in my second semester, spring. At the end of the fall semester, my mom takes me out of the class. Why? She accused me of plagiarizing my paper because she thought I didn't write it. She said that it wasn't like papers that I had wrote before. I did write it though, and she didn't even have proof. Story 31. I've been accused of assault twice. The first time at the police station, they showed me pictures of the girl who'd accused me. She had cuts all over her arms and face that weren't there when I left. This psycho had self-harmed in order to get me in trouble. Police quickly realized that since I was significantly shorter and lighter than her, and I had defensive not offensive wounds, that I was innocent. Really effed me up. Edit. Shouldn't have said twice. Was high when I wrote it. The second time is too recent for me to feel comfortable about writing about online in case it ever came up again. Sorry for the tease. Story 32. Purposefully pushing my friend's little sister off the bed and breaking her arm. We were both jumping and she fell, but her older sister and her mom refused to believe that I didn't push her. I was 7 or 8 and the little sister was 3 or 4. It still messes with me that they instantly thought I would do something like that. Edit. Also purposefully throwing bleach at a different kid's face. We were messing around pretending to interview each other in the kitchen and I grabbed the bleach that was on the side to use as a mic. But the lid wasn't screwed on and it fell off and it ended up squirting bleach right at him. I still feel so effing bad, but how was I supposed to know the lid wasn't screwed on? We were probably both around 10 for that incident. Story 33. I was like 6 or 7 and my family took us to this big house party hosted at our pastor's house. While there, I found the other kids and we started playing. Well, there were some bars there along some stairs, like part of the handle going up, and this girl decided she wanted to play jail and started pulling on the bars pretending she was in jail. And she broke the bars. So for the rest of the party, she went around telling everyone that I did it. Well, that got around to the owner of the house and they weren't happy because they just renovated it. My parents then had to offer to pay for repairs, all because I was too afraid to tell them it wasn't my fault. Story 34. During holiday seasons, a lot of retail stores hire extra security for their stores to prevent shoplifting. On an important side note, a lot of these security guards get bonuses based on the number of people they catch trying to shoplift. One holiday season, I was shopping at a chain cosmetics store and was accused of shoplifting. Turns out they were sneaking products into my bag when I wasn't looking. Okay, I was also stupid to put my bag down while trying samples, and tapping my shoulder as I was walking out. I did make purchases at that store, but I didn't realize what was in my bag because I paid using Apple Pay on my phone, which doesn't require me to look in my bag. Also, the fact that it was a larger bag that I was exclusively using to put purchased items in because I was holiday shopping for several people. Store people obviously was in it as well since they didn't care for what I had to say. Didn't check cameras on request because the guards witnessed me putting products in my bag. I also couldn't fight hard because I was an international student on a visa. Expulsion from school meant getting kicked out of the country. Story 35. Ex-wife, I emphasize ex, told her friends that I had been beating her physically. I never knew until many of our friends started avoiding me, bad-mouthing me, etc. I finally asked a friend why the change. He said, "We know it's been going on behind closed doors." I told him I had no idea what he was talking about. She got mad because I wouldn't give her an unlimited amount of spending money. I still have no idea what she spent the first $10,000 on, though. I had never even touched her, nor threatened to. Story 36. Bank robbery. I was early for my first day as a gas jockey in a new city. I was across the street from the gas station, digging through my backpack, when suddenly somebody told me to show them my hands. I was totally confused to look up and see 2 RCMP officers, hands on their sidearms. They didn't draw or anything. Turns out there had been a bank robbery around the corner a few minutes before, and my gas jockey uniform and backpack matched the description. They looked inside my bag, containing my brown bag lunch and a paper bag, and they were gone in a flash. Apparently the guy didn't get caught until after another bank robbery in the same area. Story 37. Was headed home one night from an evening with friends. Walked past a local bar. Realized it was closed. Turned around and saw a waitress/friend sitting on a newspaper box, getting friendly with a guy in a flannel shirt. Immediately, I could tell she was just crap-faced drunk and the guy was getting handsy. I knew she lived in a neighborhood across town and had a boyfriend. So I called out, "Hey, you alright?" She looks over, says my name in acknowledgement. I hold up my phone and say, "You okay?" You want me to get you an Uber?" And this look comes across her face, just changes her features. Immediately, she jumps up and runs to the bar next door, runs into the ladies' room. I follow her in to make sure she's all right, intending on getting her that Uber so she could get home safely. Like I said, we were friends. And she effing tells the bartender that I was trying to, I don't know, that it was me that had my hand up her skirt. Seriously, not sure if in her drunken state she sort of crossed wires between what that guy was doing and me, or if she'd been assaulted before and she was triggered, but F that. The effing bar turns on me, and I was lucky to have made it out of there. Since that night, I stay the F away from bartenders and servers and their little cliques. You want to get finger stuff from an unwashed lumberjack on a newspaper box on a sidewalk? Not my effing business. Maybe she was afraid that she got caught cheating because you knew her and her boyfriend, and she realized throwing you under the bus was a better look for her. That or she really was just blackout drunk. But either way, try not to let that deter you from helping people. You got a good heart. Story 38. I was accused of being SA'd by a male friend and lying about it. Male friend and girlfriend had a nasty breakup. Girlfriend's sister announces to the whole world that male friend SA'd her. Nobody believes her, including girlfriend, mainly because she has a history of this, and she hit on him after the breakup and he turned her down. I do not know if she was telling the truth and am inclined to believe my friend, but I wasn't there, so I can't know. Anyway, girlfriend's sister then announces that he assaulted me on more than one occasion, but that I never reported him and am lying because he's my friend. She claims to have proof that I told her all about it one night and claims to have emails that she could never produce. She never actually reported anything to the police, just made lots of noise about it in our social circle and made life difficult for male friend for some time. To clarify, I was never assaulted, male friend was always a decent human being to me, but for a few months I had to repeatedly set the record straight with people who had been told otherwise. Look, it's not cool to accuse anybody of something like that regardless when they didn't do it, but even if she was a victim, that's not your story to tell. Even if your heart's in the right place, if you really want to help somebody, consult with them. Story 39. When I was in elementary school, my friend tickled me while I was hanging from the monkey bars. She was very tall for her age and could touch the bars with her feet on the ground. I was super short, so the fall I took when I lost my grip was pretty long and I had a lot of time to flail and desperately try to grab something to save myself. Unfortunately, my tiny hand found the waistband to her leggings, and I took them to the ground with me, exposing her undies. She sprinted away and went straight to the principal's office to say that I had pantsed her on the playground. This being a very weird, small, hyper-religious elementary school, the incident was taken extremely seriously. The principal cautioned me about obvious perversion, and much ado was made about how this would reflect on my permanent record. Years later, my mom revealed to me that the school was toying with the idea of expulsion. The thought of me as a very small 6-year-old girl being reprimanded with this level of gravity about this alleged pantsing is so silly now, but it was very scary back then. Story 40. S.A. I was 14 at the time. I went on a double date with a girl and two of our mutual friends, and 2 days later I get a message on AIM from this girl's sister accusing me of SAing her. I denied it and thought that was the end of it. Apparently not. This girl then started spreading it to other people. It never got to my parents or the cops that I know of, but I finally told a whole bunch of people in a group chat what happened. Not only did I not SA her, I did not have any relations with her. Not only had I not been with anybody, I had never even seen or touched a female in my life. There were 2 people with us literally the entire time we were together. If a crime was committed, she would have witnesses. Eventually, she stopped accusing me and it went away. I thought that was the end of it. Apparently not. 5 years later, and I worked summers and holidays at a movie theater. My ex, who I was still friends with, worked there as well. The summer after my freshman year of college, a new guy gets hired and finds out we used to date, and approaches her and asks if she knew anything about me ever SAing a girl. She doesn't know anything about me SAing a girl because I never SA'd a girl. But she asks me, and I immediately know what happened. Yeah, this girl from 5 years ago found out this guy just got hired at a movie theater and said, "I'm so glad, now I can check with you to get the staff schedule and see when blank is working, because I never want to go to the movie theater again and come face to face with that guy." The first time I met the new guy, I told him the whole truth and I just asked him to tell her that I decided to consult an attorney because I was not willing to let my name be slandered again. He did. It was 100% a bluff, but I never heard those accusations ever again. Story 41. Accused of breaking a girl's arm on a bouncy house castle at a local fair when I was like 8 years old. Had been in there for only a few seconds, was just doing my thing, and then I heard screaming. We all stopped. The girl had an obviously broken arm and pointed at me and said, "He did it!" with her non-broken arm, of course. Dude in charge kicked me off, no refund. I found my family and explained to them, and my uncle said he was recording me on his camcorder when it happened. 1982, the camcorder was the size of a briefcase and ran on VHS tapes, but we had no way to play it back while there. Went home, plugged the thing into the VCR and played it back. Absolute 100% that it wasn't me. But then I got a life lesson in how being right doesn't mean you win. My dad pointed out we'd have to walk 15 minutes back to the bounce house and argue with them, with no way of showing them the video unless they sent someone to our house to watch it. All to get the $10 that I paid for 5 minutes on the bounce house. It would have been at best a moral victory. Most likely they'd tell us to just go away. Story 42. I bought a nice DSLR camera and was all excited to get into photography. I walked down the street to the gigantic local park with my new $1,000 wide-angle lens and tried to learn the basics of how it worked. After 30 minutes, a bleach blonde soccer mom kept asking me something, but she was yelling from 100 feet away so I couldn't hear her. Approached to see what she wanted, and when I was 30 feet away, she started screaming I was too close. She then shouted questions at me. "Why are you here? What are you doing? Are you taking pictures of my children? Do you have pictures of me?" I tried to explain it wasn't a telephoto lens, it was a wide-angle lens, and I couldn't take pics of her from all the way across the park. But try yelling that from 30 feet away while someone who thinks they are a mama bear, only protecting their cubs, and are excused any behavior. I told her I only had pics of birds and landscape. She said, "What birds? There are no birds!" I shrugged and tried to walk away. She told me if she ever saw me again, she'd call the cops and have me arrested. The playground she was at was right next to my car. I basically hid in a corner for an hour trying to get to my car to leave. I put the camera on the shelf and haven't touched it since. Story 43. Happened just the other day. I'm a manager at a grocery store. A customer wanted to purchase a $2,900 money order, paying cash. I did not feel comfortable counting that money in the open, so I took it to her cash room. Turns out they only gave me $1,900. I brought it back out and she said that she'd go to her car and recount. 30 minutes later, I get called into the store manager's office because the woman's mom called and said that she definitely had $2,900, and since I took the money away, that I took $1,000 of it from her. Story 44. Accused of killing my loser ex-wife by naval investigators while in the USMC. She went to her parents' house while we were stationed out of state. I talked to her a few times, and then a couple weeks later, her parents called asking to talk to her. Told them she's not with me, and told me she was with them. They say they dropped her off at the airport. They think I unalived her and am hiding her from them, so they call my command, who called base Navy investigators. They asked me where she is, and I kept telling them I didn't know, and at this point didn't care. Was a real NCIS-style questioning. Eventually they figure out she is staying with a friend locally, and I told them all to eat crap. Story 45. Got fired from a job for stealing cash out of the register, which was a double whammy because I was putting money into the cash register at the end of my shift to cover shortfalls, which I always had. I really loved my job, so I would cover the shortfall. On average, about 10 to 20% of my wages, but it never occurred to me to count the amount of money in the till at the start of my shift. I think I was just so excited to be there. And being young, I couldn't imagine management lying to me. A year later, the manager gets caught stealing from the till. She had been doing it for years and blaming staff. High turnover of staff because of this. Police go to press charges, but the owner says no and tells them that they will take care of it internally. True plot twist. The business was owned by the mafia. Hey, look, there's some dollars missing, huh? Just forget about it. Hey, forget about it. Story 46. Well, not accused, more like suspected. I was hanging with my circle of friends. The evening news came on. Story about some creepo reported sneaking into elementary schools and hanging out in the bathrooms. Nothing happened at this point, just some scared kids, and he wasn't caught. But due to multiple eyewitnesses, they were able to display a fairly confident police sketch. It was 100% me. In the deafening silence that followed, all of my friends turned slowly to look at me. One said, "Not kidding, I'm calling the cops." Story 47. I was 19 and working my first job at a daycare. At the end of the day, after the kids leave, we spend about the last hour cleaning the rooms. There were no kids in the room, so I had my headphones in listening to music while I cleaned. A parent comes in looking for a bib she had left. I hand it to her, wish her a good afternoon, and go back to cleaning. The next day, I get called to the director's office. That parent had told the director that I was listening to music and ignoring a screaming child in one of the cribs. There were absolutely no children in that room. I immediately started crying because I couldn't believe that a parent would tell a lie that could get me fired. I told the director to check the cameras. Yes, I was listening to music while I cleaned, but there was absolutely no children in that room. I was told that if they found out I was lying, I would be fired. I did not get fired, but I only lasted like 5 months total because even though the kids are great, the parents absolutely suck. Story 48. Got a rifle when I was like 10. It was just a pellet gun. I was 100,000% responsible. Never got in any trouble with it. Then one day my mom was raging and demanded my dad, they're divorced, come and take this gun out of her home and she was going to break it. So my dad came and grabbed it and she never said a thing after that. Years, like 15 years later, I found out my mom's boyfriend had been shooting it off the deck at the meter in the yard, and a pellet had bounced and shattered his rear truck window. He blamed it on me, a effing 10-year-old. What an a-hole. Story 49. My mom has accused me of taking headphones. Happened in 2 different occasions with different headphones when I didn't even know she had them since I was always in my room. Eventually they would show up. The second one was broken, and guess who got blamed for breaking them purposefully? Also, if I'm remembering correctly, she accused me of stealing money, and every time she would find it misplaced somewhere. I've never stolen from them, nor broken things on purpose, so I have no idea where all of this came from. Then again, my therapist confirms that I do come from an abused household. Story 50. After a Christmas party with my parents, family, friends, I was accused of shoving alcohol down their offspring's throats, then drunkenly assaulting the offspring, all of whom were around my age and actually taller than me, and indecently touching up the females. I'm female and straight, by the way. Despite how I ironically was one of the few people there who actually didn't imbibe any alcohol at the party due to being heavily intolerant to any form of it, have had rashes, a swollen face, and trouble breathing from drinks with the slightest amount of alcohol. This was then embellished with further allegations of me forcibly selling them drugs and spending every night in college getting wasted in clubs and then battering all of them into comas whilst heavily intoxicated. Anyone who knows me well would know that this was a downright lie, because in college I actually had a reputation for 1, never having set foot in a nightclub due to not liking those places, and 2, never having been drunk, obviously due to my intolerance. These accusations were peddled to my parents, who unfortunately believed them, since they were scared these friends would get violently aggressive if you tried to antagonize them by standing up to them. There was talk amongst the friends of going to the police, and I was living in fear for almost a year after that. Fortunately, that threat has never been carried out, yet. I never found out exactly why they did this, since I cut off contact with the above friends and their offspring after the party, but there had been angry murmurs in the week or so after that party. The main accuser, M, who spent the evening shoving drinks into people's hands and forcing them to down the drink in order to get everyone totally wasted, we're in the UK by the way, had been angry at me for refusing her drinks, and at one point had snapped that I was going to pay for ruining the whole evening by not letting her get me drunk. In addition, those other friends are almost all overly entitled parents, especially M's parents, who think of their offspring as perfect little angels who never engaged in wild behavior, and so chose to frame me as a scapegoat for the fact their offspring had ended up completely inebriated that night thanks to M, who was also drunk, of course. In addition, M and her parents had apparently told a bunch of people at the party beforehand that I was a wild alcoholic who had been forcing alcohol on M and dragging her into nightclubs since high school, and they were complaining that me not drinking had made a liar out of them all. Story 51. When my boss found out I was not straight, she wanted to get rid of me. So she made up a slew of false accusations about everything, from destroying property to corrupting minors. She presented me with a document outlining those and all the other reasons why I was being fired, and then actually had the nerve to ask me to sign it to get my last check. I told her, very politely, I must say, just where she could place the document. Then I went over her head to the board of directors, and she was fired. The board begged me to come back, which I did, as a consultant, as a double pay. Story 52. I spent a semester abroad in Germany during my junior year of high school. I ended up having to come home early due to falling ill. I came back to school, and turns out someone spread a rumor that I was found in bed with multiple men, and that's why I had been kicked out of the program. Everyone believed it, of course, and my senior year was completely destroyed while I've never fully recovered. Story 53. Was leaving a club to go home. Find a girl at the exit crying. I ask if she's okay. Her friends left her. Okay, well, do you want to use my phone? Sure. In steps bro to save the day. Listen, man, she doesn't want any. Just go home. What the heck, man? She's just using my phone. Yeah, well, she doesn't want to go home with you. You should just leave. Right as I was about to push back, she got off the phone and gave it back. She jumped in a cab and bounced angrier than I was before. Idiot bro goes back into the club. Stupid AF. That pointless guy added nothing to it all in a hopeless attempt to try and get some butt, probably. Story 54. One time my friend and I were ringing an ambulance for a girl who was passing in and out of consciousness in the street opposite a popular club a few doors down from our work. I see her phone light up with an incoming call, and it's her pal. I explain what's happening and ask if the pal can get to us. Her pal says the girl is diabetic and might be some reaction with the booze. So I explain this to the ambulance on one phone while talking to the friend on the other. Friend says she's coming outside and will be 5 minutes. Friends took 45 minutes to get outside, by which time police have arrived. Still no ambulance, and are speaking to me and my friend while giving what first aid they can. Unconscious girl's friends show up and run over telling me to get away from her and accuse me of trying to take her home with me. Literally just turn to stare at the copper as they're accusing me, and he's like, the phone says you hung up 40 minutes ago and ignored this man's call since. Meanwhile, he's been missing work on the phone to an ambulance and called us for help the second he seen us. They were not amused policemen, called them out for being crappy friends, and accusing the people who actually looked out for their friend for the past hour. Story 55. Several years ago, I went to the supermarket with some family members, and I walked away from them while they shopped. I was texting my girlfriend at the time, and text started to either get steamy or funny AF. Can't recall. All of a sudden, Karen starts yelling at me and accusing me of taking photos of her 2 toddlers. I was so baffled and somewhat worried because that's a very serious allegation. We had a back and forth where I was chuckling and offering to show her my photos. Can't remember if she or I walked away, but I met up with my family, we paid, and left. I spotted her as we were leaving the parking lot, rolled my window down and said, "Hey, go F yourself, you crazy butt female dog," and gave her the finger. My sister slapped my leg because she thought I was yelling at a random stranger. I explained the situation though, and then we high-fived. F Karen. Story 56. In 6th grade, I had to walk past my crush's lunch table to put up my lunch tray. I must have blinked or had something in my eye because they teased me mercilessly that I winked at him, which I most certainly did not. As a 6th grader, my shame was unending. Or maybe it was when I was in 3rd grade, my crush and I were playing on playground swinging bridge thing, and he was walking in front of me, and I accidentally tripped and my teeth cut his head a little bit. They teased me that I was a cannibal trying to take a bite out of him, which could not have been further from the truth. I almost died from embarrassment right then and there. I am not a suave person. Story 57. I am still upset about this. I worked at a Cold Stone creamery. One of the other ice cream scoopers drew a giant chicken on the slab. The scoopers are kept in cold water, so they make excellent drawing implements on the frost on the slab. When caught, he blamed me for no reason. I was immediately written up, and my side was 100% ignored. I quit on the spot. F them and F that. Story 58. Kidnapping and the unaliving of a child for explicit reasons. The neighborhood harridan was causing trouble, and her kid decided to run away. He wrote a note and took off for his dad's place. The harridan fails to notice there's an "F you, I'm living with dad" note, sees a few spots of dried jam on the table, looks outside and sees me walking to work. I knew she was unpleasant, but at that point she seemed to have come completely unhinged. She called the cops on me for it. Very unpleasant half hour while the cops sorted out the mess, culminating with the cops dragging her off for an emergency psychiatric hold. Never saw her again after that. Story 59. Cheating on my husband because my roommate had a guy friend in the room, and the a-hole duty didn't see her and assumed I was cheating because I'm a woman, and he didn't like women. Only in the military are you vilified for doing things properly. The worst part was my roommate was following the rules and the door and blinds were open and she was allowed to have him in the room. The a-hole quickly backtracked and told me I should have never have a guy in my room, even if it was my roommate's, because if the wrong person came in, I would be assumed guilty and charged. I don't miss the mental gymnastics some boys in the military go through just to be right. Story 60. Unaliving. When I was 12 years old, I was accused of unaliving somebody. There was a kid in my tiny butt town that went missing. The day before he went missing, me and him had got into a fist fight. We were friends on and off like kids are at that age. I knew his mom and deadbeat stepdad, and they knew my mom. The entire town from the time he went missing all accused me. My mom didn't believe me, my friends didn't, and my teachers. 2 people believed it wasn't me. My little sister and the kid who went missing's older brother. We had a school assembly honoring him, and I remember every single kid in the school except me and my little sister, because I wasn't allowed to go, so she stayed behind with me. The local news station did a reenactment of what they think happened. They got a kid who looked exactly like me to play my part. It was effing scary. I had Canadian-type FBI cops take me in their SUV in my driveway and record my statements. They ended up finding a campfire on the waterfalls in my town with some empty chocolate wrappers around it. They concluded that he had fallen, or been pushed by me, off the waterfalls. The hate went on for around a month until they discovered his body down the creek near the river. An autopsy was done, and it was ruled that there was no foul play. I remember getting the then phone call. The lady who did the autopsy had called my mom personally because she had heard about my story. We come to find out later on that his stepdad had beat the crap out of him that night and he ran away, stole $400 and bought some chocolate bars and a lighter, and must have thought he'd be safe at the waterfalls. Ever since then, whenever I'm accused of something, I instantly feel like I did it. Anyone accuses me of anything, I instantly feel guilty and act like I'm a kid again. I'm 34 now, and it's still like that. Crap effed me up good. Sorry for the run-on, I've never typed this story out before and haven't told many people outside of the ones who already know the story. Story 61. That my inability to provide support for my mother amounted to me wanting her to die of neglect. This came from my sister, whom I had put through college. The fact that she had completely disregarded that I had supported her education wasn't what hurt the most, but the fact that when my dad died, prior to the series of illnesses that overtook our mother, I hadn't obligated any of my 3 younger siblings, my sister was the youngest, to pitch in with the medical and funeral expenses. Didn't ask to be reimbursed afterwards or even ask for any acknowledgement of what I did, but being short on cash on one occasion, and I was the black sheep being told, "Why don't you just say upfront that you want mother to die instead of being a burden to you?" I thought that was the low point of my relationship with my sister, but worse came after I lost my job due to health issues. I couldn't have gone through all these years without having relatives and friends who propped me up when depression and despair would seem to overwhelm me. But survive I have with their help, and also by cutting off any communication with my ex-sister, who had disavowed any familial relation with me according to relatives to whom she had made the declaration. Story 62. Stealing $10,000 of my roommate's drug money I didn't even know he had. Happened about a year and a half ago. To the point they trashed my room, destroyed my things, threatened me themselves, threatened to have their guys mess me up, screaming, "Give me my freaking money!" over and over and over in my face, saying we were being watched, having random people taking pictures of my car and recording me. They've told everyone they know in my smallish town and posted all over Facebook. We stayed at a hotel for a week before we found another place to live. We were terrified and we had to borrow money from our parents to get into our new place. We are still in debt because of what happened. Meanwhile, I have a reputation for being a thief. I have PTSD to this day, and I've had to start taking medication for my paranoia and anxiety. I've been confronted about this from random people several times since it happened, and I've considered moving out of state, but I just don't have the money or resources right now. Story 63. My first management position was overseeing a few dozen new hires and determining where they would make the best fit and excel based on their strengths. I had been with the company 13 years and in this position a little over a year. Had a new hire who was a recent college grad, and the issues started piling up immediately. Nothing really bad, just a lot of little things. Showing up on time, following the dress code, professionalism over the phone and email, right out of the gate. Not exactly abnormal, sometimes they're not aware of the expectations or need to be told how their behavior is being perceived. The behavior did not improve, and there were multiple warnings. Informal, "Hey, notice this," and formal, written warnings that get forwarded to HR. As we approached the 90-day review, it was clear to me that I would be recommending termination. The behavior had escalated to the point of being defiant. Not showing up for work at all, talking to payroll without permission, dating a coworker, unprofessionally, and one memorable incident where this employee insisted that they couldn't participate in a project because they had allergies. About a week before the review was scheduled, she dropped a complaint with HR. I was sexually harassing her. I was trying to date her, and everybody knew it. I talked about how much I admired Hitler. I was inviting her to drinking parties after work. All of it was bullcrap. The investigation lasted 6 months. During that time, I was reassigned to a do-nothing job. I got interviewed a dozen times because she kept adding allegations. Eventually, they had enough to allow the lawyers to clear me, fire her, and get me back into a parallel position. That was not, in fact, parallel. It was a crappy, no-win job that I worked my butt off in for 3 more years. Eventually, my mentor took me to lunch and laid it out. I had no future with the company. I could stay where I was, but there would never be a possibility for advancement. The stain of having an HR investigation was just too much. I was being kept on, so I wouldn't sue them. His advice was to find a job in a different city, pack up, and they would send a sterling reference. I had been there for 16 years. I moved, started over in a new career field, and do a lot of counseling. Story 64. About 10 years ago, my best friend had several $100s stolen out of her nightstand. I was the only other person who knew it was there. There was no evidence of a break-in. Nothing else was disturbed. At the time, I was pretty desperately broke. All signs pointed to me, and there was absolutely no way I could prove myself innocent. She was so cool about it, too. The way she brought it up, "Did you maybe borrow it from me and plan to replace it?" etc. And when I swore up and down I had nothing to do with it, she believed me, even though logically she had no reason to. Thank God she eventually noticed that her bedroom window had been tampered with. Come to find out, the neighbor's couch surfer had been casing the apartment and noticing when people came and went. Let himself in through the window and was super careful not to disturb anything. Had the house to himself, thus plenty of time to look carefully. And a nightstand drawer is not exactly the hardest place to guess or access. I don't remember exactly how she figured out it was him, but we were both so glad when she did. What a sweet and trusting roommate. I think this is the only story where someone's like, "Yeah, I believe you," and things work out great. Story 65. My younger female cousin, about 10 years old, lived with us for about 6 months. My brother, 8, and I, 12, had one purpose in life: get the other in trouble with our parents. We were mortal enemies and absolutely hated each other. My cousin was a habitual liar and a troubled kid. She immediately started telling my parents we were slapping and hitting her. We never laid a hand on her, but since we fought so much, my parents believed her. We were in a constant state of grounding, but my brother and I formed a truce. Showing my age here, but my dad had just bought a Windows 3.1 PC and was showing us the Asteroids game. It was amazing. I was sitting on my dad's left while my brother was on his right. We heard my cousin screaming our names and yelling stop. My dad did the slow look to his left, then his right. He rose up out of the chair like a madman and rushed to my cousin's room. She was just standing on the bed slapping the crap out of herself. It was as if time stopped. My dad processed the situation, then went ballistic. My cousin threatened to call CPS on my dad. He handed her the phone, and she just smarted off. She had to go live with a family friend after that. My brother and I immediately went back to fighting after she left. We haven't seen her since. Over 20 years ago. Story 66. So when I was about 13, we were living in this neighborhood that was way too rich for us. My dad wanted to get us away from the ghetto and crap, so he was saving for years and started making some big money on investments. So we moved to upclass Orange County. Like 2 to 3 million mini mansion neighborhood, but we couldn't afford the lifestyle. Anyways, I was definitely the poor kid there and didn't have any friends. So I stayed inside a lot. Like, a lot. Come the day after Halloween, my butt was inside all night on Xbox, and some loser neighbors come banging on our door saying they're calling the cops unless we pay for their broken front windows that somebody threw pumpkins through. Their kids told them that I did it, and they were screaming that they had video evidence. My pops got into a screaming match with the Orange County housewife with her coward husband kinda just standing behind her. He called me downstairs and asked, "Did you do this?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, that's that." And he slammed the door. He didn't even think for a second I had anything to do with it, but still the craziest crap I've ever been blamed for, without even leaving my room. Story 67. Probably going to get buried. But when I was in college, I had a brief relationship with a young woman. We had a decent relationship, but she started acting strange, and shortly after we broke up, she mentioned she needed space, but had actually cheated. No big deal. I went my separate way and figured that was the end of things. All of a sudden, people start avoiding me. I sit down at a table among people that I'd call friends, and they'd make excuses and leave. I was driving down the road near the dorms, and someone tossed a rock at my windshield. For the life of me, I didn't know what was going on. Eventually, I am waiting for class, and a girl I knew walked up to me slowly, looked me right in the eyes, and said, "I just want you to know, I don't believe that you punched her in the face." I was like, "Wait, what?" I was fairly well liked on campus, so when it came out she cheated on me, a lot of people thought she was really crappy and awful. I hadn't told many people that she cheated, but the guy she cheated on me with bragged to a bunch of people, and her image just kind of suffered. Naturally, her way of shifting the negative attention was the lie, and tell people I punched her in the face when we broke up, and that I'd been stalking her. She had old messages saved to her phone that she was showing people and saying I just sent them. Stuff like, "Good morning, beautiful." When asked why she never had any bruises, she deflected and said that she just covered them up with makeup. People assumed I was guilty, and I nearly dropped out of college because I was so depressed from being treated like a loser. Only a few people in my circle actually believed me. Around when I was thinking about dropping out, she got caught in a lie against someone else, and she tried the exact same thing. She got caught and people put two and two together that she was lying about me too. I got a lot of apologies. I had never so much as raised my voice and said an unkind thing to her, but a lot of people were quick to throw me under the bus. Story 68. There's a bit of a backstory to this. So, I am the mom of a 20-year-old girl with cerebral palsy and spastic quadriplegia. I had her at 19 and is literally the most remarkable human being I've ever been blessed to know. As an infant, she was in intensive care for 14 days, then transferred to a regular room, then to a rehab hospital for 2.5 months. I spent every moment with her. I never left her once. I could go on and on about what that was like, but I will leave it simple. I saw her near death, but I also watched her get better and turn into what I would consider a full-blown teacher of humility and compassion to all those she touches. Needless to say, in those months of being in the hospital, I felt very alone and uncertain, and when night fell, would think of a few things that would give me hope and strength to get through. So just about a little over 2 years earlier, one of my best friends had a daughter who went through something similar at birth, had a prognosis that was looking dire as well. But thankfully her daughter, even though near death as well, made a full recovery with no handicaps, developmental delay, or physical limitations. I cannot tell you how the thought of her gave me hope. Her little girl became a thought that would lull me each night, and I was thankful just to know their story. My daughter, however, was what doctors called profoundly impaired. Once we finally were able to come home, I had to navigate life not only as a brand new parent at 19, but as a mom to a child who was severely handicapped, developmentally delayed, legally blind, a feeding tube, therapists, doctors, seizures, medications, etc. I was definitely not able to maintain, at the time, my friendships. Not because I didn't want to, but because I literally had no energy to. Most of my closest friends understood. If they wanted to support me or spend time, they'd have to reach out because I was spread so thin. All but for one, a friend whose daughter went through the similar birth injury. She never spoke to me, and at times if I ran into her in public, she was downright noticeably upset by my presence. I had absolutely no clue why she would be. I missed my people and longed for normalcy, so it was a hard pill to swallow at the time when I was probably not deserving of the treatment. Here's the accusation. Years later, when I tried reconnecting with her, she blatantly accused me of no longer talking to her because I resented her and her daughter because hers got better and mine did not. I cannot express how far from the truth that was, nor how much this person never even grasped, even a little bit, who I was/am as a human being. To be so dang self-absorbed. If she had bothered just once asking me how I was doing while going through all of it, she would have known why I was unable to give her as much time as I would have liked. She will always be my friend, as we've known each other since we were 12, and I know people and their perspectives change through years, so I give the benefit of the doubt. However, it still casts a shadow on my opinion. Because how dare her not only think of herself while my daughter and I went through that, but also how dare her for thinking I'd change my child? As hard as things have been and still are, I do not have the lesser of the two. And at the time when she accused me, I told her that. I explained as tactfully as possible that I've had to think about things she will never comprehend, and one is how to lead with complete compassion, enough to actually see who my child is. Perhaps her daughter got better because of that, and an understanding that the reason I have a child like mine is because I can, and that is profound. Poetry, baby. Oh man, you know what I loved more about that? Like the accusation was kind of on the back half of the whole story, I just loved hearing this mom talk about how much she loved her daughter. It was so well written and beautiful, like you can really feel it, and the way she writes, like she just has so much joy and love for people. And it sucks that this lady, I guess, was kind of projecting that. She's like, oh, you're probably just mad because my daughter got better. But in reality, she was just busy loving her child. She did say that she will always be her friend, though, so I guess hopefully they made up, and now everybody's happy and loving. What more can you ask for? Story 69. Stalking. There's a mall nearby where I live. I lived here since 4th grade, but started going there on my own in 6th. I'm not big on socializing with others, so I don't have many friends. I sometimes go to the mall just to walk around and look at stuff. I thought everyone did that. Senior year, the girl in my JROTC is weirded out by me. Whatever, she works in the mall too. I don't care, she's none of my business. I still carry on walking around the mall when I feel like it. I relieve a lot of stress by doing so. About 2 months ago, her friends accused me of stalking her, observing her from a distance and whatever else. They were mad at me for not being upset about how the senior trips and dances were canceled, even though I just didn't comment on it. So 14 people in like a 26-person group chat take the opportunity to let their anger out on me. They called me a stalker, creepy, super weird, antisocial, and so forth. It kind of hurt because some of these people were nice and I thought they considered me part of the team and got along well. I defended myself since I've lived here forever and I was about to join the army and leave for a long time. I thought I had every right to enjoy the place I felt most comfortable in and called it home. My mind still hasn't changed about that. Worst part is, it was my first year in JROTC. They're all still very crappy to me. With all of that said, I've neglected all of my work for JROTC now. It's not a graduation requirement. And I ignore the Zoom calls because the people in leadership roles would be in those calls. I see no reason to further affiliate myself with a group that constantly talks crap about me and a handful of students behind our backs. Story 70. Smoking cigarettes. Really nothing that bad, but I hated it. This was back in high school. Both my parents smoked, divorced home, so no matter who I was with for the week, I smelled like smoke. I had to always wear cologne. Anyone who ever asked if I did, I would tell them no, and it would be a, well, you smell like, yeah, I know what I smell like. I bought my first car and I kept a couple changes of clothes so I could change when I felt like it, do laundry and quickly get out of the house while I was clean-ish. Never smoked, and never will. Father passed away a couple of years ago from lung cancer from smoking for 40 plus years. Mother has yet to quit, despite seeing what it did to the father of her children and how it crushed my brother and I to lose him. Don't effing smoke, people. Your kids will likely resent you for doing it. Story 71. Was accused by a girl in my high school friend group of getting girls drunk and SAing them because she didn't like me and needed a way to convince the others to kick me out. I went to a small school, and the rumor traveled throughout the school within a day, and I was even confronted by the principal. I was ostracized for a couple of weeks. She had zero evidence, and when pressed by another friend and I, she confessed it was a lie. The most messed up thing was that she faced zero repercussions from anyone. Even most of my friend group instantly forgave her and acted like nothing happened. Story 72. Got falsely accused of racism by classmates at secondary school when I was 12. Context. I was an annoying little crap. Not a douche, but just really annoying, which meant I was immediately an easy target for bullies, the main group of whom were of a specific ethnic minority. One of them, for some reason, wrote something incredibly obscene about myself and another student on a chair in our art classroom, and I reported it to the teacher, because I was like that, and name-dropped who I thought it was. And they all got thrown in front of the head of year. That was that, I thought, until a few days later where he called me into a meeting and told me they'd accused me of calling them several racist slurs. I of course denied it because it was completely untrue, and because I was a goody two-shoes. He had no reason to not believe me. A couple days later, a parent of one of those kids got the police involved. They talked to the school and immediately threw out the case. But I had involved in racist incident on my school profile for the rest of the year before the schools were allowed to remove it. 6 years later, and the ringleader of the group was one of my best mates and really supported me through my depression. And since I've been at university, he's occasionally messaged me to say he's really impressed with my ballroom dancing skills that I took up at uni. That's maturing for you. Story 73. I was sick from class for 2 weeks with pneumonia. My car shop teacher always accused students of smoking dope. He was like, "Where have you been?" when I came back. I said I was sick with pneumonia. He said, "Yeah, right. I saw you in the parking lot smoking dope. Sit down." Never have I ever smoked anything, but whatever. He also never taught us crap. and instead he would play a Steven Seagal movie because it had a car chase in it. He would call the movie Leia Beating, and we were like, I'm pretty sure this is Hard to Kill. And he was like, no, it's Leia Beating. Or he would play cheesy forklift safety videos. The 2 weeks I was sick was the only time he taught crap in class, and everyone learned how to change a tire. I missed the one useful thing he ever taught. Story 74. Not the worst, but definitely most annoying. My mom and I went to a local charity event, which happened to have drag queens as the main event. It was very loud and crowded, so I got uncomfortable and cranky very quickly. I have sensory issues, and it didn't help that it lasted until midnight. Next day, Mama's raving about the event, but I'm still exhausted, so I'm mostly just lukewarm. She pauses, giving me this weird sideways glance. You did enjoy it, didn't you? Yeah, I guess. It was kind of uncomfortable, though. Again, loud music. Why would you be uncomfortable around the queens? I've never felt safer than in a gay area. I raised you better. We argue a bit, but no, I'm not homophobic, but the most frustrating thing? I'm literally gay. Being a homophobe is pointless to my endgame. Story 75. Hitting a middle schooler with my car. I was in high school and had just gotten my license. My parents didn't trust me with the nice car, so I had to take the minivan to school. I got a reputation as the guy with the silver minivan because no one else drove a minivan, and I'd always put the back seats down so I could give a ride to 15 people to get to track practice. One day I checked my phone after getting home from practice and saw that it had blown up with texts, IMs, and every other form of communication, with people worried about where I was, yelling at me for being irresponsible, and even a few threats. Apparently, someone in the class below me had just gotten their license. On his way home from school, he hit a middle schooler crossing the street. The only info they used to describe the driver was 17-year-old male driving a silver minivan. Everyone assumed it was me because who else is desperate enough to drive their mom's minivan? The next week of school was a mix of uncomfortable and scary as I had to explain the situation a million times and even face a very angry older brother of the middle schooler. If a teacher didn't happen to be walking by at that moment, I wouldn't have had the chance to explain before he knocked my lights out. Story 76. In college, I lived with my cousin. I was incredibly sick for 3 months and lost over 30 pounds because I couldn't keep anything down. I was in and out of the emergency room with severe vomiting and abdominal pain, but they never admitted me to do further testing. After my 10th time at the ER, they finally admitted me. My parents came and walked into my room solemnly with that, "We have to talk to you" look on their face. They confronted me and said that my roommate/cousin had told them and the rest of our family that my boyfriend told her I was addicted to Vicodin, and that's what was making me sick. Boyfriend definitely did not say anything like that to her at all. I was so upset and offended that I made my boyfriend go to my apartment and bring the one bottle of Vicodin I had that was a year old and only had 2 pills out of 20 missing. Parents then believed me, but I still asked hospital to test as extra proof. Obviously, all was negative for drugs. That admission, I finally found out what was actually wrong with me. They diagnosed me with severe Crohn's disease with a complete bowel obstruction and was taken into emergency surgery to remove 2 feet of my small intestine. Roommate never apologized for lying about boyfriend and spread completely false rumors that I'm a drug addicted and acted like it never even happened. Story 77. In the 80s, I was riding my bike home from high school with a buddy. We were almost at his house and took a shortcut down the back alley. There were 3 young boys playing cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians in the driveway across the alley a few houses down from his house, and they all had toy guns, including one of the kids that had a toy rifle. When we rode by, all 3 kids pointed their guns at us and shot us, either saying bang, 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 or their guns made a clicking sound. I don't like children, so I ignored them. But my buddy, who knew the kid with the rifle, made the handgun gesture with one hand and shot back as we rode by. Got to his house, went downstairs to spin one and listen to music. We were chilling when we saw legs running by the basement windows. We were just going upstairs to see who it was when our local SWAT team did a tactical entry of the residence, breaking both the front and back doors down at the same time. They hauled us both outside, handcuffed us, and laid us face down on the sidewalk while they absolutely tore the house apart, ostensibly looking for firearms. We thought they were there for weed. The head cop determined we were both minors, so he wouldn't talk to us. Eventually, my buddy's mother came home from work, followed 15 minutes later by his dad. We overheard them saying we were being charged with numerous firearms-related offenses, including brandishing a firearm in a threatening or menacing manner. They trashed the house but never found any firearms, because there weren't any to find. We were hauled off to the police station, separated and questioned for hours. As we were both minors, we were assigned CPS caseworkers and lawyers. We both stuck to our finger gun story because it was the truth. Eventually, we were put in holding cells and fed stale sandwiches and pops. Midway through supper, a lady cop came, got us and said we could go home. Charges were being dropped. No apology, no nothing, just released to my buddy's dad. Found out much later the kid with the toy rifle had told his mom about the finger gun incident, and she, recognizing what it was, laughed it off and dismissed it. Senile PTSD grandfather overhears the conversation, though, has a flashback, and unbeknownst to the mother calls 911, saying 2 teenagers had threatened his grandson with pistols. Eventually, the mother had found out what was going on and intervened, vouching for us. My buddy's father tried to get compensated for the broken down door frames and was basically told to get bent. "We're the cops. We don't pay for anything." The cop on the phone said he could file a complaint with the provincial ombudsman, but they promised to make his life a living heck. Grandpa swatted us 30 years before it was invented. Story 78. Funny story. Old friend from school, let's call him Dale, invited me to his family cottage to spend the weekend with them. I went with them, had a good time, BBQ and board games, yada yada. Couple of weeks later, I'm talking to Dale, and he tells me that his parents are very upset with me. This is where it gets funny. Apparently, just as we were leaving the cottage that weekend, someone had used the toilet before the road trip back. The toilet got clogged and spilled nasty toilet water all over the main floor of the cottage, which had ruined the floor completely. They didn't realize this for a few weeks until they went back to the cottage and discovered the huge mess caused by the effing toilet overflowing everywhere. They blamed this all on me for some reason, and I effing swear that it wasn't me who used the bathroom last before we left. It was either Dale or his brother. Never happened, bro. Dale's parents were pretty rude people and never had a problem reminding me constantly about the gosh dang toilet overflowing at the cottage, and how they got new floors covered by insurance, and the place looks much better with the new hardwood thanks to making lunch. Suck a chicken, Carol. You know I didn't ruin your floors. It was one of your stupid sons. Story 79. My mom, and her husband at the time, accused me of being pregnant and having relations, even though I was a virgin. This was in high school. I had taken some muscle relaxers that my mom had. I was trying to self-unalive before bed and was sick in the morning. My mom was about double my weight, so I didn't think I needed very many. I took slightly more the next night and just ended up being sick again the next morning. This prompted her to ask and accuse me of being pregnant, and then both of them letting me know that I've definitely had the chances to have relations, even though the only time would have been during school, which was not something I was going to do. Story 80. Accused of cheating on my 20 female ex, 22-year-old male, with my pregnant best friend. Threw me for an absolute heck of a loop. She would send me regular bump dates of her baby bump's progressions. Sometimes she'd be in a bra or undies, but female best friends of several years? It wasn't something that struck me as odd, especially when the purpose of the photo is, "Hey, look at my baby," not, "Hey, I'm in my underwear." He argued with me for weeks about how I was cheating, despite there being nothing sexual about it at all. From this spurred accusations about me having relations with her, and how her always asking for alone time with me must not be because girls like having girl time, but I can only possibly have been sleeping with my 8-month pregnant best friend. Very happy to have long moved on and away from that psychopath. Story 81. When I was in college, I got called into the dean's office and was accused of setting off a fire extinguisher. The only reason I was singled out was because I had gotten written up 2 times my first 2 weeks of a semester for dumb noise complaints when I was drunk. I told them it wasn't me, but they refused to believe me and claimed they had a witness that saw me do it. I said my friends can provide an alibi, and they didn't care. They said that they were going to figure out what to do with me, so for a few days I was on an edge, worried I was going to get kicked out. Then I get called in again, and I'm nervous about what's going to happen, and they basically just say, "Our bad." Apparently they found pictures on Facebook of the girl that actually set it off doing it, didn't even get a real apology, and was just told to stay out of trouble. Story 82. My dad was accused of unaliving people. He'd installed a hidden security camera and done some under-the-table engineering work for a pub landlord, who ended up being found murdered a few days later. After he called Crime Watch to anonymously tip them off about the camera, there was a massive search for him for more information, which led to some nasty treatment by police officers that almost made my dad lose his job. They took the clothes and shoes he'd been wearing to test for evidence, tried to keep his company car in police impound, and manhandled him into a police station for questioning when he went there voluntarily to tell them what he knew. The camera hadn't been recording when it happened, and it was so well hidden, the police thought that my dad had to have had something to do with it. They found the actual killer a few days later after some door-to-door inquiries, where a young man tearfully confessed to accidentally killing him during a robbery gone wrong. My dad never got an apology and doesn't help the police anymore. He's been a witness to multiple crimes and is now one of the people that says, "I didn't see anything," every time. Story 83. Accused of stealing some woman's purse when I was 16? I was with a group of friends at a Culver's, and this woman came bursting through the door and stomped into the dining area, looked around, stared at me, and told me to give her purse back. I just kind of looked in shock, and all my friends were really confused. I just kind of shrugged at her and was like, "What are you talking about?" I asked if she wanted to look under the table or something, and then she just started stomping towards us in the front counter. I saw them take her purse out from wherever, and she just took it and left. No sorry or anything. It didn't really hit me why I was singled out, but my friend immediately made the comment, "Dude, you're the only minority in here," and it became pretty clear why it happened. Story 84. When I was in university, I was accused of being one of those people who other people pay to write their essays for them. My professor expressed in a letter that she wrote to the dean, based on my writing style, she had a good hunch that I needed to be monitored. For 10 weeks, in academic quarter, I had to turn in an extra copy of my essays and weekly assignments to a committee dedicated to this kind of thing. I also had to attend meetings about academic honesty. I was so annoyed by it that every time I turned in an essay, I was hoping for less than an A grade. At the end of the quarter, the committee deemed that they had no reason to believe I was one of those people and no marks of this inquiry would be shown on my academic record. So much unnecessary stress and a complete waste of my time. I mean, that is super inconvenient, but like, what a compliment. They thought you were good enough to not only maintain A grades, but also be writing multiple A grade papers for other people? What a stud. But again, douchebags. Story 85. I was accused of acting racist by my significant other at one point. We had just gotten back from grocery shopping and were bringing them inside. Two of our neighbors, directly across from us, were sitting on their patio smoking cigarettes. They happened to be black. We bring the first trip's worth in and head back to the car. I lock the door despite the car being maybe 60 seconds time from our door. We are also on the second floor of an apartment complex. My girlfriend asks me why I locked the door on the way back to the car, and I say it's because I don't feel comfortable leaving the car unlocked when none of us are in it. I typically do this regardless. Even the mailbox is a short distance away, and I always lock the door behind me. It's something my parents drilled into me after being robbed once. She asks me if it's because of our black neighbors on their patio, to which I said absolutely not. But I could tell she was weirded out by me locking the door despite her not noticing that I do it literally all the time. And I'm Puerto Rican, for Pete's sake. Story 86. My best friend of 14 years, who I will call Lisa, and I had been growing apart for a few years. We then went on a girls' vacation with another friend, who I'll call Amy. We were at a show one night and Amy took a video of Lisa dancing with a male rep, even though she had a boyfriend at home. When we left, I jokingly said to Lisa, "I hope your boyfriend doesn't see that video." She turned around and hit me hard in the face in the middle of the street. She refused to believe that it was not me who took the video, even after Amy showed it was filmed on her phone from her angle. We actually completely fell apart since this happened, and she refused to apologize for attacking me in public, and also refused to acknowledge that it was not me who filmed her. Sad times. Story 87. I used to go to daycare as a kid, and there was a kid who will be named Clyde. The counselors would just let us roam a small area for an hour or so, then feed us, rinse, and repeat. I was a very quiet child and usually just sat on the concrete until my parents came and picked me up. One day, Clyde was in trouble, and one of the counselors, who shall be named Derek, chewed him out. When Derek was walking away, Clyde called him a weenie. Derek wasn't having any of that and started chewing him out when Clyde accuses me of calling him a weenie. They took me and Clyde into the office while they sorted this out, let me back to concrete sitting, and then Clyde's mom arrived to pick him up, and they told him what happened. My parents show up. They join everyone sitting in the office. I was sitting in that dang office for like 45 minutes. Clyde finally cracks and spills the beans. His mom starts getting angry at him, he starts crying and accuses me over and over again. That piece of crap, Clyde. Derek is also to blame because he apparently couldn't handle being called a weenie by a 9-year-old. That's why I sit on the concrete and was so quiet as a kid. Story 88. Theft. I was accused of stealing my sister's engagement ring. Initially, I thought my sisters and parents were joking, but it quickly turned out that they were not. I had never even paid attention to what the ring looked like. After asking more details, I was told that since the ring was not an exact fit, she had used thread, so that it's a temp fit. This was the arrangement till a trip to a jeweler the next day to get the correct size. I asked her all the chores she finished that day, and one of them was arranging clothes received from the dry cleaners. I asked her to check all the clothes and lay them open on the bed to ensure the ring that would have otherwise intertwined with the clothes. She did not do it as it would spoil the nicely pressed clothes. After a few agonizing hours, she did that and found the ring, and she happily accused me of putting back the ring, as I was insisting on checking clothes. While all of them were happy and dispersed as if nothing had happened, something inside of me died that day, and worse, something was born. I was 16 at the time. Story 89. At age 19, I was visiting family a few states away from my husband. I saw a friend while I was there who was pressuring me heavily to be indecent with him. I fought him off and left, very upset. I called my husband, sobbing about what happened and how I was proud I could fight him off. A few years later, after our 2 kids were born, my husband got drunk and demanded to know if our kids were his. I was a stay-at-home mom, never left the house, had no friends in our current city, and I asked why he would even think that. He blamed me of sleeping with my friend and accused me of calling him out of guilty conscience to lie directly to him over the phone. It was so just incredulous. So completely out of left field, and I remember just staring at him and trying to comprehend. A few years later, your kids were born, and he still thought they might be the friends? How drunk was your husband? Story 90. I got accused of essaying a girl at my school. We were watching a movie and doing stuff, and I would ask her if it was all right before we did anything. At one point, she broke down crying, and I stopped everything and made sure she was all right, at which point she explained to me that she didn't know how to say no. There was no indication prior to this that she had an issue. It just sudden crying. Then the next day, I start getting texts about how I essayed her, and posters start popping up at school about how I'm misusing women and how I've essayed dozens of girls. Me and the girl are still friends. It's just her friends that decided I essayed her, I guess. It hurts because I've always made sure about consent. I don't understand how I could have known when she didn't give me any indication otherwise. Regardless, though, I decided to not date for a while after that. Story 91. The good macaroni pot went missing from the cupboard once when I was a teenager. I asked my mom one day where it had gone, and then we asked my brother and my stepdad, and no one knew where it was. My mom tore apart the entire cupboard looking for it. Eventually, my mom and stepdad came to the conclusion that either me or my brother, or perhaps the both of us in cahoots, had taken the pot and hidden it somewhere as a prank. Both of us absolutely denied it, but they were convinced we were lying. It was a crappy week of getting the cold shoulder from my mom while also being on the receiving end of a lot of passive-aggressive digs from my stepdad. I went to my brother's room one night and told him he could be honest with me if he took the pot, and I swore my secrecy. He denied it, then flipped the question around on me. I didn't take it either, so I also denied. My brother was never the type to do stuff like that, and I believe to this day that he didn't take it. I'll admit, I was the more likely culprit, but I didn't do it either. Then one day I came home from school and went to make macaroni, and there it was! So I used it. Mom came home shortly after, and I excitedly showed her that I had found the pot. I thought she would be perplexed, but happy. Nope. She was mad all over again and accused me of putting it back while everyone was gone. Kick 'em while they're down, Mom. Story 92. I was in 6th grade, working as an AVA, audio-visual aide, someone who assisted with tech for classrooms, and awaiting an assignment in the library when a 5th grade teacher whipped me around out of nowhere and demanded that I apologize to her. For what? I stammered. You know what you did. The woman screamed at me, demanded I apologize, and so, sobbing and hysterical, I did. Then she demanded to explain what I was apologizing for. I don't know, I sobbed. She didn't like that at all. But then the librarian came by and intervened. He separated us, and that's all I ever heard of that. Never did know what she thought I did to her. She gave me the stink eye, too, for the rest of the year. Story 93. Theft. A nice homeowner was out of town for the weekend and put up webcams around his house and had several geocaches posted up. So you cache, note the time, and could find yourself looking for the cache. Rent-a-cop came by and said I was trespassing. Straight away explained the property owner had invited me, told him what we were doing, etc. Dirtbag calls the real cops in. Meanwhile, another group of geocachers are down the road, from both ends looking at us. I showed the cop the app, blah blah blah, didn't believe why I had a bag of trash with me. Yes, many geocaches also do litter pickups. Finally, someone walks up and starts looking for the cache right in front of the house. Cop said the person was with me and trying to break into the house together? This was the day I learned to hate cops. Edit. Homeowner said he informed the security and HOA of the geocaches who would be stopping by that weekend, and that people were allowed to walk around his lawn and the sides of the house, etc. Story 94. This probably isn't as bad as others, but I went to a private school for a while and there was an incident that involved myself and several others. We were trying to get an annoying kid to stop touching other kids' lunchboxes. Being a Christian private school, the teachers all looked down on us and were probably praying to the almighty Lord above to strike us sinners from the face of the earth. It was a non-denominational Christian school, but they acted more like angry God-fearing Baptists. All of us were called into the office to settle a small dispute. One of us went down for starting the incident, another for not using words. Even though we did try to talk it out and even got a teacher, but no frickin' luck there. Apparently, one of us shouted, "Attack person!" Then went down the line of people who were in there and they all denied it. Then it came to my poor, unchristian self. I was basically forced to admit it since none of the other rich kids admitted to it. My family could barely afford to send me there, but we made it up until 5th grade. So I got detention and so did everyone else, but they made a point to discipline me the most. This is one of the things that pushed me away from religion, but that's another set of stories. Story 95. When I was around 8 years old, I had gotten my first Swiss pocket knife. I was laying in the yard exploring all the different tools in it. Next to me, my sister was shooting a football into one of those retractable goals, and she suddenly started yelling at me that I'd used my knife to cut the strings of the goal. My mom believed her instantly and was furious with me. She spanked me over her knee, no matter how many times I said I hadn't done anything. 2 days later, my sister was fuming again. Apparently more strings were broken now. So my mom hit me again and decided that I had to fix my sister's goal. So she gave me a ball of string and took me outside to the goal. When she tried to show me how to tie everything back together, the goal string snapped in her hands. She was absolutely perplexed. The strings had worn out from standing in the scorching sun all summer. They had snapped from the force of the ball. My mom never spanked me again, and she grounded my sister for claiming she'd seen me cut the strings. For the Americans out there, football equals soccer. Story 96. Being a predator. I was interviewing for a summer program as a counselor working with kids, and I made the mistake of being underdressed for the interview, polo and khakis. And the lady interviewing me complained the whole time about how I was dressed like a thug, and I was probably a predator since I didn't take the interview seriously. I had only gotten my foot in the door because my cousin was one of the directors for the program. For whatever reason, they hired me, and I stupidly accepted the job. The entire summer, the same woman who interviewed me watched me like a hawk and made sure to nitpick my performance or behavior and how I was acting inappropriately around the young girls. I never understood what her problem was with me or why she even hired me if she really believed I was who she thought I was. Polo and khakis? That's the first time I've ever heard someone dressed up like they're going to church get accused of being a thug. Yeah, he's a middle-class gangster. Story 97. Arson. The shed in which the town's predator essayed kids was burnt to the ground. At 16, after reporting what he did to me as a 14-year-old, I was charged with arson because the two people who were responsible told police I planned it and paid them to do it. Some up-himself butthole of a cop decided the best way to approach this was to charge me as an adult. I was facing 15 years in prison for essentially being essayed by a grown man as a teenager and doing the right thing by reporting it and telling. Got all the way to the magistrate's court in the city for sentencing, where at the last minute I decided to tell them I was guilty, because 15 years in an adult prison as a 17-year-old was signing my own self on a live note. The people that actually orchestrated and did the crime got a good behavior bond with no record. I was a volunteer firefighter at the time. My fellow firefighters turned against me in court, saying things like I had said I would burn it, I'm a bad person, etc. The prosecution got my high school teachers to testify, saying I was always in trouble or wagging and a troublemaker, even had my mother up on the stand saying I made the whole thing up. Police evidence found he did it, but I was the bad guy. Turns out it wasn't his shed, he was just renting it, and the cop had some sort of investment/arrangement with the owner, if you get what I mean. Drugs and alcohol became my tool of coping, years of therapy and hard work. I'm now a grown-up, albeit with a criminal record of arson. Working within the system, helping kids, and just trying to break it. Story 98. I went to an all-girls school, and it was normal for people to compliment teachers on their appearance as a friendly thing. Now, I'm an asexual aromantic. I don't feel attraction, nor do I understand it, so I don't know what people consider friendly, and when people consider it as making a move. So one day I complimented a male teacher like I would compliment any female teacher. It was completely innocent, and I forgot about it for ages. Then one of the higher-ups came to me and accused me of hitting on my teachers and told me to be more professional. I felt so violated because I was in grade 8. Right after the meeting, I told my mother to come pick me up, and I went home early that day. It took me hours until I said a single word to my family because I was so disgusted, and I didn't know if I was just stupid and said something inappropriate or if my words had been unnecessarily sexualized. I still haven't gotten over that. Story 99. Got accused by my mother of attempting unaliving. When my bro was still a baby that could barely stand, my mom made us take our first bath together. She sat me down and told me that it was very important that I do not push him, and that if he fell on his back, he would not be able to get back up on his own. I understood the gravity of the situation, and so while she washed him, I played with the little bubbles. Now at some point, my mom had to look away for a bit because she needed to grab a towel on the counter behind her. Now I crap you not, this happened in the 10 seconds it took for her to turn around. My bro was not in any danger. But by turning, my mom surprised the kid, and so he fell on his back. I knew that a baby's head is really fragile, and so I jumped to his rescue. I put my hand under his head before it touched the water, and my other on his back, but I was sitting in water, and even if the kid couldn't have been much older than 1, I was 5 years old at the time, and he was too heavy to get back up in mere seconds. And that was all I had before my mom turned around. As soon as she saw us, she assumed that I had pushed him. She panicked and got us out of the bath. She then asked my brother if I was telling the truth or if I had pushed him. But plot twist, me and my brother both struggled. In our infancy, because we always mixed up yes and no, if you can't already guess where this is going, my brother, while trying to defend me, led me to my doom. I had never seen my mother more stressed out and distraught in my life, but after a while, stuck in my room, she came to free me and apologize. My brother had asked her why I punished her, and so she finally put the pieces together. To this day, I still laugh about that time my mom accused 5-year-old me of wanting to drown my own brother. Story 100. My parents thought I was doing drugs because they found an elastic band in my room. Kind of like the kind you would use as a tourniquet if you were giving blood, or doing drugs, I guess. The band was for my recently healed foot. I had been in a cast for 2 months, and part of PT for my foot was using the band for resistance to build strength. I have no idea how my mom didn't know about this band, considering she was with me when the doctors gave it to me. She was in the room as the doctor explained the PT exercises. I had never done drugs before and wasn't even on painkillers. Not only that, but I couldn't drive because my right foot was broken. In order to leave the house, I needed to ride everywhere, like some gimpy drug seekers going to request a ride from their mom to their score. One of the biggest WTF moments in my life. Story 101. Beating the heck out of my younger sister. My mother had to work a double shift, leaving at 3 p.m. And I didn't want to leave her home alone at night when I went to work, so she wanted me to bring her to my grandmother's house before I went to my job. I wasn't happy about it, but whatever. My youngest sister and I didn't really get along. She was clingy and I just didn't like her. However, this night we were getting along by throwing a plastic bottle cap at each other. She was laughing, I was laughing. It was a good time. I then told her to stop because I had to get some sleep before bringing her to Grandma's. So she goes to play in her room and I fall asleep. I wake up hours later when my alarm goes off and get dressed. I then go to find my sister and she's nowhere to be found. I figured my mother had picked her up anyway, which was true, but in retrospect, I should have called her. And I went to work. I get a call literally 10 minutes before I leave from another sister saying how my mother is going to kill me, have me arrested, blah, 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 blah. For what? I ask. Well, apparently my youngest sister called my mom to tell her I'd been beating the crap out of her. I tried to explain that I'd been sleeping, but I was told I was lying. I tried to explain to my mother that I had been out cold, but I again was called a liar. No one cared to explain that if I had actually beat the crap out of my sister, why did no one wake me up right then and there? Crap infuriates me even after all these years. Story 102. Breaching a contract. I was in the process of buying a house, and I signed a contract. The contract stated that the mortgage loan interest rate will be around 2%. After I signed the contract, my realtor took me to the bank, and the bank told me the interest rate is 4%. I confronted my realtor, said I felt blindsided because he didn't tell me prior to the interview. He claimed he didn't know. So I called up the bank manager who interviewed me, and he said my realtor was already told about the interest rate. I told my realtor I don't want to go through with the contract because he obviously lied to me and the contract was not valid. However, being the foreigner living in Japan, my realtor thought he had an advantage. He made fake documents my husband and I never saw in our life, claimed that I wasn't listening to his explanation because I was busy filling out forms. When I took down his argument, he changed his defense and claimed that he didn't speak English at all, even though we've been communicating in English for 1 month, with texts and emails to prove it. His company backed him despite all the glaring evidence. He's the boss's son. They accused me of breaching the contract and wanted me to pay around $55,000 in a cancellation fee. Luckily, one of my Japanese acquaintances happened to be very well connected and experienced. He got me out of the contract and apologized on behalf of Japanese people. I was moved. Really. Story 104. When I was 14, I had my first ovarian cyst. I stayed in the hospital overnight and out of school for a few days. When I finally went back, one of the girls was telling everyone I had a miscarriage. There were a few problems with this. First off, I hadn't even kissed a boy yet, and two, we both went to a private Christian school. We went to church 3 times a week. I told my mom, who told the principal. When asked if she was telling people that, she denied it, and of those she told, refused to say anything. The few that believed me stood by me. It really hurt not being believed. I was a straight-A student who never got into trouble and had no interest in boys yet. I learned who were really my friends after that. Still friends with them all these years later. Story 105. Okay, I was about to 5th grade, and there's this one child, and I'm sure we all have that one pervy kid in our class, and so this pervy child decided to try and look up P, and I guess he tried to show it to another student, and the teacher had left the class, and I had been in charge. The boy and the other student are laughing, and I go to see what's going on, and yep, I see it, P. Now, I think the only reason why I got in trouble because I didn't report it quickly enough, because I think they started to believe me. And believe it or not looking up P in school is a really big deal. But I didn't understand why at the time. We had an officer coming in the next day explain to us why we can't do that. And yeah, I know that's disgusting, that it's not school appropriate, but I didn't know how serious it really was. And the boys blame me for it, just because I was in the area. The 5th grade is the last grade of our school, so we have a really fun field trip at the end of the year. We go to 2 different places, and they were threatening me to not be able to go do that fun trip, and I was heartbroken at the time. And I was upset because I didn't do anything, but this kid, he just blamed it on me. So I had to miss the whole field trip and sit in the office all day, and it was this whole 6 hours of school. God, I hate this kid. We moved to another school after we finished that one. The kid came to the school that I was intending to as well. And literally the 3rd day at school, he got kicked out. He's still a little perv. The other student was my best friend. She didn't know what it was either. She didn't want to look, but this kid was trying to make her. For about a week, the principal kept having at least every student in my class come to the office to tell her what they knew. And although most of the kids said that I didn't do anything, I still got in trouble, just because my name and got popped up. Story 106. I know this isn't as big of a situation, but here we go. I woke up one day and felt kind of sick, but I brushed it off and went to school that day. We had a field trip, and I became really ill and couldn't really enjoy it. When we came back, I told my teacher that I have to tell the administrator's office that my brother is going to pick me up so they will allow him, but she refused and said her class, her time. I got mad, but figured she wouldn't budge, so I sat down 20 minutes later. I really needed the bathroom. I asked her, but she said that I was lying, and the only reason I wanted to go to the bathroom was to call my brother to pick me up. I got even madder, and I told her that if she isn't allowing me to go use the bathroom, that I will walk right out. She let me go, but not before taking my phone when I went to the bathroom. I threw up and had to go to the nurse's office, then the administration's office, where I told them what happened. They got my phone back, and the teacher got a warning. Story 107. This is tamer than the others, but anyways, a couple of months ago, someone stole my classmate's shoe, and we had to put on an event we were working on hold until we found the thief. Well, my classmates were blaming each other, and I noticed 3 classmates I was sitting with at the time were using a small whiteboard and marker to tell each other that I stole the shoe, simply on the fact that I was suspiciously hanging around the cloakroom, or something along those lines. What makes it all worse was that 1. The event was on hold for half the school day, and 2, there was the suggestion of having another class do it and take full credit for it when they did nothing, and my classmate most likely put in a lot of effort into those things they brought in. Everyone was upset by the event, thankfully, but not passed on to the other class, but I'm still upset about it. Story 108. S.A. I was at my friend's party and was pretty drunk. This girl I didn't know just came in and was telling a really funny joke to her friends. So I booped her nose, which I admit was weird. Party went on, and after 2 or so hours, she approached me with 2 of her male friends ready to kick my butt. One of the party organizers, which was also my friend, rescued me and went with me outside to discuss what I did. I was really upset because in my whole life I was trying to be respectful and aware of women's issues like abortion's rights, no victim shaming, etc. Generally just being supportive, right? I felt like it was the most unfair thing in my life at that moment, so I explained my side of the story and we go back in. We confront her and she gave a half-butt excuse about being from a tough neighborhood and being a girl, so she had to play that safe. She was also drunk when making that statement, so it all ended well. A week later, I was with her at another party at the same place and she apologized to me and was really embarrassed. No hard feelings. Overall, the situation was kinda good. I'm a starting stand-up comedian in my country, so I made a joke about all this. At the second party, we were left alone in a room because the rest of the people went for more alcohol. So the joke ends with me thinking, if I essayed her now, would anyone believe her? Fortunately, she likes that joke. Look, I'm not the best judge of jokes. People don't always like mine, but just make sure if that's your punchline, use it in the right room. Story 109. Obviously, I'm using my TA account for this. I don't want you internet psychologist mother effers to use my past and throw it up in my face. As a 7 or 8-year-old kid, my stepfather hated me. Anything I did was wrong. I was punished by paddling, heavy belting, slapping, or backhanded beatings or punches, or less violently grounded to my room. He got on this kick about my sister and I forgetting to flush after using the toilet. I would get write-offs, but she wouldn't get punishment beyond a talking to. One Saturday morning, I hadn't even gotten out of bed yet, and stepdad is yelling at us to come in the bathroom because someone hadn't flushed the toilet. Sister starts crying, her go-to reaction because stepdad had a soft spot for her. He asked us who did it. She pointed at me. I protest. I try to point out the obvious details. Boys don't sit to pee and don't use toilet paper after. Seat was down and paper floating in the bowl. It was 110% obvious that she was the culprit. As soon as I start pointing and talking, he raises his hand like he's about to backhand me. He'd done it many times, and I shut up before he does. I was grounded until I wrote, "I will remember to flush the toilet," 5,000 times. I spent my entire summer in my bedroom while they bought her swimming pools and toys and let her friends come over to play. The next time I saw my almost new bicycle, it was rusty because they moved it outside for some arbitrary reason and just left it. If I bring this crap up nowadays, it's projecting, or I somehow dreamed it all up because that sorry alcoholic loser couldn't have possibly hit anyone, right? It's not like my mother got a scar on her face from being pistol whipped with the butt of his revolver, right? The scar is still there, by the way, but they act like I'm not scarred because mine can't be seen. I just dreamed it all up. I'm projecting. None of it really happened. I was a delusional kid who was never abused. Well, I want them to explain why he's afraid of me now. If he never did these things, what does he have to fear? Story 110. So some backstory to this tale. This was 5 years ago when I was 30. I'd gotten really ill with a stomach flu, or what I thought was a stomach flu. Terrible stomach aches and pains, mild fever, nausea, and terrible diarrhea. I thought I'd just take it easy, rest up. Everything I ate went through me, no matter what. Eventually, the pain and urgency to go defecate was so extreme I had lost something like 30 pounds in a week, and I was very weak. Even getting up from bed was agonizing. I wasn't sleeping anymore, just constantly crapping myself into oblivion. I checked myself into a hospital, and there I stayed for 8 months. Pretty much besides 2 weeks at a rehabilitation home, basically because I'd lost my ability to walk from malnutrition and atrophied leg muscles. I was down at 74 at my worst and looked like a skeleton. My hair had fallen out in places on my head and my skin was all left up. The doctors had no effing idea what was wrong with me. During all this, my fiancé and best friend told everyone behind my back that I had given up and was just a waste of space, basically. Joke's on them. I was one of the rehab nurse's favorite patients because I didn't give up. I got a diagnosis from a colonoscopy that I had severe UC, an autoimmune disease that went undiagnosed till then, and is quite common to be diagnosed between 18 to 30. I gained healthy weight back, left that butthole fiancé of mine, who didn't want to see me in hospital because it was a long drive of 20 minutes, moved away, taught myself to walk again on my own, and then when said a-hole wouldn't take me to rehab, found an amazing GF and got health insurance. Who's giving up now, huh? Story 111. Stealing food. This may sound like it's not a big deal, but to me, it was. When I was younger, 7 or 8, some snack cakes went missing. We had just bought them, and the next day they were gone. We were supposed to go to the lake to swim that Saturday. He promised. It was once a year we went to the lake to swim for a day and then went home. My dad didn't work, but my mom was constantly working. So we got a once-in-a-blue-moon trip, the light of our summer. My dad was upset. Those were his snack cakes. My dad made me, my brother, and my sister stand in the living room until one of us admitted to stealing them. He remembers putting them away, he said, that they were not left at the store. He stood there all day. When nighttime hit, he said that he would spank us all in the morning if one of us didn't admit to it. The lake was out of the question. When he went to bed, my brother and sister looked at me. I started crying, telling them that I didn't do it. They believed me, but one of us had to admit it. Maybe he would let them go to the lake and they would be nice to me all summer. Also, I was the youngest. He wouldn't hurt me as bad. We all knew he went the easiest on me. He really did. One of us had to take the blame. The next morning, he came out with his belt, went to grab my brother. I told him I stole them and ate them all. I swear my bottom was bleeding when he got done with me. The lake was still taken away. My sister held me that night apologizing. She was mad he hit me so much and so hard. She didn't take them, but it made her mad. She just kept saying sorry, but it wasn't her fault. The day after that, the cakes were found in the cabinet behind some canned food. When my brother asked if we were going to the lake next Saturday, he said no because we had lied to him. Got punished for lying the next day. Similar things happened throughout my childhood, and I cannot stand when someone gets blamed for something they didn't do. I turn off the TV, put down the book, whenever something like that is in the plot. Story 112. True story. Worked at a crappy used appliance store in college. It was a good job for me because it was usually slow and I could do homework. Anyway, we did deliveries and in-store pickup, and twice a week deliveries would go out. I came to work one day, a delivery day, to the cops waiting for me. My boss happened to come in and check the inventory and saw there were about 15 appliances missing, gone for delivery, totaling about $5,000. He assumed I was selling under the table and had the cops arrest me. Since it was a second-class felony charge, they couldn't just drop it despite lack of proof and a reasonable explanation. It was mind-blowing. I had to hire a lawyer and spent about 2 years going to court only for my old boss and arresting officer never to show up. Got an ACD in the end from lack of any evidence or involvement, but I spent about $3,000 on my lawyer, and it was a massive headache on my head for over 2 years. Absolute crap show. Nothing worse than being accused knowing you were 100% innocent. Story 113. Context. In my school, our classes are organized into 4 to 5 sections, and in each section, 5 groups called responsible teams, or RT for short. During 6th grade, I was accused by my RT of bullying a girl in our RT. But the thing is, she was harassing me, so I was shouting at her and pushing to get her to stop touching me. They took it upon themselves to write a several-page problems with my name, which they, 1, wrote in front of me, 2, shoved it in my face when they were done, 3, taunted that they'll give it to our teacher, and 4, finally gave it to our class advisor. It was all fake though. I was actually being bullied by my whole batch since I started in that school, which lasted until I graduated. I didn't actually do anything to my RT, they just hated me. It was a good thing my teachers knew that I was bullied, because they suspected it was fake, but they didn't tell it to my RT. They called my parents up to discuss it and confided in them that they knew I wasn't how I behaved, that they still had to talk to them just in case. Looking back, it was crappy of my teachers to not confront my RT when they knew they were making stuff up, but that wasn't the only time they failed me, so whatever. It was all horrible and it led to actually being diagnosed with depression and psychosis in the future. But thankfully, I am way better now. But yeah, I still have a lot of issues, but not as clinically severe anymore. I never forgave any of my bullies though, and I don't think I ever will. Story 114. An ex of mine had been actively harassing me and making my life a misery for years after we broke up. It had thrown me into a spiral, and I struggled with alcoholism and an eating disorder for a bit, but then I got this amazing job and really started turning my life around. The only thing, though, was that I had to completely isolate myself from all my old friends. I refused to go out after dark unless it was a work thing. The only person I would hang out with was my older sister. My sister and I got really close because of this. We were hanging out almost every day. She had gone through a rough patch where she had a miscarriage and then her husband left her. They patched it up and have 2 great kids now. But at the time, she was in a dark place, so I would get food and bring it over to her house and stay over. Then drive out of the city for work around 4 in the morning to make sure she had a good night of sleep. The ex caught wind that I was doing better and oh no, can't effing have that, so he concocted this lie that my sister had cheated on her husband, and when we asked how he knew, he told people that I'd told him. My sister attacked me over the phone in the middle of my shift, then she blocked me. She got our whole family on her side. For months, no one would talk to me. Eventually, my dad reached out and things got normal-ish, but my sister didn't talk to me for a year after that. She still won't believe me. Okay, so obviously the boyfriend is a douche, but why is the family believing him? What did he do to earn the trust and respect that, like, after a year of her getting her life together and things going well, he's like, by the way, she told me the rumors. And everyone's like, oh yeah, she's a piece of trash. You're so right, dude. Look, he's a bad guy, but this family, I mean, come on, guys. Story 115. Hit a baby in the head with a fridge door on purpose. My little niece, when she was a baby, loved to follow me everywhere. She could barely crawl, but no matter what's going on, if she sees me, she follows. So I'm walking down the carpeted hallway at my sister's house, going to the kitchen. As I pass my older niece's, her sister's room, which is right next to the kitchen, who comes creeping up behind me but my shadow? I had no idea she was back there. I'm 6'2". She's a 6-month-old baby crawling on carpet. Anyway, I open the fridge, and just as I put the required amount of force on the handle to break that magnetic seal, I see something out of the corner of my eye on the floor. Wham! Right in the forehead. Baby screaming, sister cursing. I only hit her with the force you need to open the door of a fridge, but gosh dang, you should have seen the look on her mom's face. She thought I purposefully hit the baby. No permanent damage. She is one of the smartest, most imaginative kids I've ever met. Story 116. I was on the cheer team in high school. My sophomore year, we made it all the way to the Disney World Nationals. All teams competing are put up in one resort owned by Disney. During this trip, one girl snuck off in the middle of the night to hang out with boys from another team from another state. She had told my roomies beforehand to ask for a cover, but I wasn't involved much more than overhearing it. When we got back home a week later, this girl started to get a blister on her upper lip, and we were all sure it was from the boys who happened to be from Alabama. After that first day back, though, I totally forgot about it all and never heard anyone mention it again. Until about a month or two later, someone snitched on her to the coach. At my school, you could already be on the team 1 year and try out for the next before the school year ends. So technically, if you tried out and made the coming school year's team, you were on both until the contemporary year ended. Ergo, she got booted from both teams for it and was blocked from ever trying out again. She told everyone that I was the one who snitched and basically ruined my last years on the team because it was always her trying to convince everyone that I had it out for her. To this day, I thought we were close friends and have no clue why she assumed it was me, nor why she was. Story 117. Hit and run. It was my junior year of high school. My mom had to take my car in for an inspection, so she dropped me off and picked me up that day. The next day, I get called into the assistant principal's office, who was well known for being a female dog, and she said, "So, do you want to tell me what happened yesterday?" I replied with, "I don't know, you tell me." She then told me how a vehicle in the student parking lot was hit by a student's car and the driver fled. The description apparently matched my car. I couldn't help but smile and said, "That's funny because I had to be dropped off and picked up yesterday. My car's inspection was due. I have the receipt with a timestamp if you want to see it." She thought I was lying, wanted to catch me in it, so she gave me permission to go to my car and get it. Went to my car, grabbed it, had the office copy it, and sent it to her. Never was bothered about it again. Checkmate, lady! Story 118. Selling drugs. Boyfriend I had at the time was very argumentative, with the officer pulling him over to ask a simple question. We parked my car at his family friend's cafe in his tiny town that gave us permission prior. The officer turned on his lights and boyfriend drove to his house. At least a quarter mile, saying, "They can't pull me over if I'm at my house, right?" But this wasn't GTA, and the officer had his lights on a long time before then. I digress though. So the officer finally gets douchebag to pull over, and he's super combative and argumentative, and so officer makes boyfriend get out to search him. He had his brass knuckles on him. Automatically, this is an illegal weapons charge, so I have to get out so they can search the car, including my purse. The officer searches the car. We aren't worried because there shouldn't, to my knowledge, be anything illegal in the car. The officer approaches me. "Is this your purse?" I tell him, yes, because it was, and I wasn't worried about a single thing. Also, telling the truth is the best. Then he holds up a bag of pills. "So what's this?" My stomach drops. The week before, I gathered a plethora of different painkillers from my ex's house. I was living with him and his family at the time because I had nowhere else to go. It's a long separate story. His mom never threw out their prescriptions, and I was depressed and wanting to unalive myself. I had every intention of downing the entire sandwich baggie of 60 plus pills, but had forgotten, at that moment, they were in the zip pouch inside. I got arrested and charged with multiple felonies, including having a Schedule II drugs and intent to distribute, aka selling drugs. They then found a gun in his car, which was registered to his mom, along with the car, and we were both taken to jail. He got 1 year unsupervised probation. I got 2 years supervised deferred sentence. But I had to get mandatory counseling, and in the end, it really helped me and saved my life. Well, that's a very crappy situation, but it's good to hear it kind of worked out in a way. You know, everything happens for a reason. But yeah, what a douche. Story 119. I live in a complex with a pool area. It's pretty nice and a lot of people try to sneak in to use it. I never care about this because I feel as long as anyone respects the rule and it isn't crowded, they should be able to swim when it's 100 degrees outside. I was the only person in the pool area one summer, which is a rare occurrence. So I'm doing my thing, just swimming around, have a baseball game on my radio. Then I notice a group of kids trying to hop the concrete wall to get in. It's about a 10-foot wall, so I said, "Hang on, I'll just open the gate for y'all." They hear me, get spooked, and run. I think it's because they assumed I was going to be angry at them for sneaking in. 10 minutes later, 2 very angry men come to the pool area and start yelling at me, calling me a predator. I'm confused as all F and ask what the F they're talking about. Mind you, I'm 6'3", 285 pounds, so I'm not one to back away from anyone calling me a predator. I get in their faces and ask who the F they're calling me that, and they say, "Our kids came down here and said you tried talking to them." The same kids I asked if they would like to use the gosh dang gate instead of jumping a 10-foot concrete wall went and told their dads that an adult was trying to talk to them. I set them straight and told them exactly what happened. They ended up not even living in the complex and were sending their kids to see if anyone was there to complain. I just about strangled one of them when he called me a como. Story 120. Bullying. In 7th or 8th grade, I was called to the principal's office. When I arrived, I was told that another student had accused me by name of bullying them at lunch. Now, I have a pretty unique name, even including the slightly more common nickname I went by at the time, and I think outside of my family, my father, I've met all of 3 people who use the same nickname, and only 2 with the same actual first name or a very close spelling of the same name, so I can imagine this was viewed as a pretty danging prospect by the administration. Anyway, the principal. Knowing me and knowing very well that this would be more than out of character for me, sits me down and calmly asks me about it. After several minutes of me denying everything and explaining what I had done at lunch, hang with friends the whole time, I am asked to go sit in the next room over, which is a one-way glass to the principal's office. After what was probably 20 minutes but felt like an eternity, I was asked to come back into the principal's office where I was told that the other student had been asked to come to the office and had confirmed I was not the student who had bullied them. At which point, everyone, including the principal, let out a small sigh of relief. Story 121. In high school, I was accused of stealing money from a teacher. My principal dragged me to her office at the end of the day and went through a dramatic spiel of questioning me and digging through my personal belongings, looking for the cash. I let her do it because I knew she wouldn't find anything, because it was stupid to assume that I would even know that particular teacher had money. I didn't even have her as a teacher and hadn't even been to her classroom in 2 years at that point. I was a senior with senior classes, and this particular person taught freshmen and sophomores. Furthermore, the reason she thought I stole the money was because I looked suspicious when I left the locker room and apparently had some cash in my hand. I almost lost it at that point because I was carrying a foil wrapper of Pop-Tarts when I left the locker room. My principal was like 5 foot and attempted to be intimidating, which worked on a lot of people, but for some reason this situation especially amused me more than anything. Story 122. I was accused of holding my pee. When I was 16, I had major truancy problems and had to go to court for it. They made me do a pee test, which was fine by me because I was clean. Well, it turns out I can't pee while a cop is staring at me. I was at that courthouse for 2+ hours trying to pee. I had to keep coming out to drink water. I was in so much gosh dang pain from how full my bladder was, but I just couldn't pee with this woman watching me. The cop straight up told me that I was holding it because I knew I was guilty. I was in tears at this point because I was so humiliated and stressed and in pain. At one point, I was sitting in the hall drinking more water, and they brought a second officer over who started waving handcuffs in my face, threatening to cuff me if I didn't pee. They kept telling me they were going to take me to juvie. It was insane. Eventually, they were all distracted, and I just booked it to the bathroom and immediately was able to pee because I was alone. They were going to make me stay longer to pee again because someone had to be watching, but the judge came out and saw all of this happen and said I can go. My test came out indeterminable because it was so diluted from all the water they made me drink. I was supposed to come in and do it again every 2 weeks, but before the next visit, I was put into an inpatient mental health facility because of severe depression and self-harm. You know, the reason I had truancy issues in the first place. The courts seemed to completely forget about me after that, and I never heard from my school again. Guess I slipped through the cracks. Ended up getting my GED a few years later. Story 123. Doing drugs. I was 16 years old. I went to a public restroom and upon exit, I suddenly felt very sick and disoriented. Instead of getting help, my mom demanded me to tell her what drugs I was doing. Turns out, I had cancer. Despite the fact that I literally had cancer, she kept insisting for months. She told my family and tried to get me to talk to a Catholic priest about my problem. I eventually got so effing upset that when I had my surgery, I flushed my Oxycontin down the toilet in front of her. I went several days without painkillers. She shut up after that. Oof. Hey, you know what? He proved his point, but that sucks. Hope you're doing well, buddy.